What would you say if I told you that keeping cash in your bank account was one of the riskiest things you can do? You'd probably say, oh no, here we go again. What is he selling me now? First of all, I have nothing to sell you. And secondly, every year you keep your money in a bank account, the less it becomes worth and the more it's damaging your current and future wealth. In fact, according to figures from Rise Up, in 2026, there is now almost £650 billion sat in current accounts or low interest accounts doing absolutely nothing. And all of these people are missing out on billions in interest every single year. So in this video, I'm going to go through some of the reasons why you may not want to hoard cash anymore, why it could be one of the worst financial decisions you're making, and what to do instead. So let's get into it. Okay, so the first reason is cash is inflation's favorite meal. So if you are sat watching this video in the UK right now and you think to yourself almost every single day, why is everything getting so much more expensive? That is because of one reason: inflation. Essentially, what this means is that your goods and services that you buy every single day from Tesco, Asda, Morrison's, wherever you shop, gets more and more expensive every year, and the purchasing power of the money that you have now becomes weakened. So let's use an example so you can kind of wrap your head around this. Say you had £20,000 sat in a current account. You left that for 10 years. Now let's assume the average inflation rate is 2.5% because it's been roughly between 2 to 3% for the past 100 years. After 10 years, you would still have £10,000 in your account. The number wouldn't change, but that money 10 years later would only have a purchasing power of £15,600 in today's terms. In other words, you'd have effectively lost £4,400 by never spending a single penny. Just remember, this is your hard-earned money just kind of going to waste and kind of disappearing into thin air. And let's be honest, who wants to just chuck away £4.5 grand? Like, no one really wants to do that, do they? So overall, that would basically mean that a quarter of your money that you saved in a current account would actually be worth way less. And if you already know enough about taxes in this country, we get taxed so much. So why would you throw away another £4,600? This is something that definitely doesn't get spoken about enough. We will talk about solutions to this later on in the video, but let's move on to the next one, which is scammers will love your bank balance. So you might be sitting here watching this video right now thinking, what do you mean? Scammers will never get my money. That is not possible. I am way too clever for that to happen to me. But unfortunately, scamming is not just a case of a simple email from Nigeria or India anymore. It is a very complex process that some incredibly clever scammers go through now. And if you don't believe me that you will ever get scammed, I'm going to give you a couple of examples that you need to be wary of. So Ray Analt had spent decades building up his savings, and at 89 years old, he had almost $1.7 million in the bank, essentially his entire life savings. Then in June 2024, Ray received a phone call from someone claiming to be a bank investigator. They told him that his account had been connected to a money laundering investigation and that he needed to help them protect his money. But what followed was an elaborate 6-month scam. Ray was instructed to withdraw huge amounts of cash from his bank, and when the bank started asking him questions, the scammers convinced him that the bank itself had been compromised, so he moved his money elsewhere. He was then told to buy large amounts of gold using bank drafts, which were collected by couriers who Ray believed were part of the investigation. The scammers even used fake bank employees, spoofed phone numbers, and official-looking letters to make everything appear legitimate. By the time Ray's family realized what was happening, almost $1.7 million had disappeared. And what's particularly shocking in this story is that Ray wasn't simply handing his money to a stranger. He genuinely believed he was helping investigators catch criminals and protect his own savings. Ray later turned 90, but there really wasn't much to celebrate anymore because after a lifetime of saving, he was left virtually penniless. And if you're listening to that thinking, well, that's not going to happen to me because I'm not a vulnerable 90-year-old, well, listen to this story that happened in March 2025. Essentially, a finance director at a multinational firm in Singapore joined what seemed like a routine-like Zoom call with senior leadership. The CFO was there, other executives appeared on the screen, pretty much everything looked right, sounded right, and felt right. The finance director listened to the urgent request for a 499,000 fund transfer and authorised it. However, there was just one problem. None of those employees were actually real. Every face on that video call was a deepfake. Every voice was artificially generated. The entire meeting was fabricated using AI technology and publicly available media of the actual executives. And by the time the company had actually discovered the fraud, the money was already in the criminals' accounts. So unfortunately, it's not just your standard emails anymore. You have to take into consideration AI, deepfakes, voice generation, and so many different tools that these scammers are now using. So no matter how smart you are, if you get caught on a bad day, this can 100% happen to you as well. But if scammer prevention is something you want to protect yourself against, there are 3 things that you can do in order to prevent being scammed at any moment. Number 1, please check with your legitimate bank first. Give them a ring on their real phone number. Number 2, please use an FSCS protected bank that protects your money up to £120,000 in cash. And number 3, it doesn't matter who you think this is, whether you think it's your best mate or a family member, do not rush to send anyone any money. Okay, so let's move on to reason number 3, which is I need that money in my current accounts for emergencies, don't I? You probably hear personal finance creators like myself or any other type of finance professional banging on about how you should have 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved up for your emergencies. And yes, that is true. You do need at least 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved up, maybe even 9 to 12 months if you're self-employed. But this doesn't mean that the emergencies have to be saved up in one singular current account with the lowest interest rate of all time. An emergency fund does not have to be kept in your bank. If you go onto Google, type in best easy access savings accounts, you can look at some of the best rates right now. You can stick your emergency fund in one of these easy access savings accounts. And then if an emergency does occur, you can just withdraw from this fund, put it back into your normal bank account and pay the emergency. Because let's be honest, why would you want to keep an emergency fund that is technically losing money every year to inflation when you could have some of that money working for you so that potentially the interest that you're earning could actually pay for the emergency? This is a very common and quick fix that you can actually make to your finances. I 100% understand why people keep their emergency savings in their bank accounts because it's so easily accessible. But you've got to remember, we are in 2026 now. We can withdraw funds from our easy access saver within minutes to our normal bank account. So yeah, this one is just some food for thought. Okay, moving on to number 4, and this one makes me laugh because I used to do the exact same, which is it feels like the money is gone. Because the money that you have isn't sat in your bank account and you can't just log on and see it every second, you kind of psychologically trick yourself into thinking that you don't have as much as what you actually do. And if you don't log on and see that big bank balance that you've always had, you feel like you're broke. And like I said, I used to be a complete victim of this, but once you realize that you don't need to have all of your money in one place to be financially secure, that is when you can start winning with your money. But you might be thinking, well, Will, what if I go to near £0 towards the end of the month and I have an expense that I don't realize that is about to come out of my account and potentially put me into my overdraft? Well, if it makes you feel comfortable, you could potentially have another month of living expenses sat in your current account. Even if it's not earning any interest whatsoever, if it gives you a psychological safety net, that is completely fine. Because if you're someone who is worried that your bank account is going to go into the minus at the end of the month if you forget a certain expense, then definitely have just another month's living expenses in your bank account so that never happens. Because no matter how financially savvy you are, there are times in your life, and I'm still guilty of this, where you completely miss budget and you end up with probably way less money than you expected. Okay, and finally, let's move on to reason number 5, which is the danger of only using one bank with UK protection. For some reason, people kind of have this weird obsession with keeping all of their money inside of one bank account just so they can view their wealth in one place. I sort of get it, but I also really don't. Once again, this is definitely something I used to do. I remember when I was roughly 19 or 20, I think I just had all of my money sat in my current account. I think it was about £7,000 at the time. So for what I'm about to tell you, that is not going to be affected whatsoever. But it certainly wasn't the best way I could put my money to use at that time. Now, I'm not saying that everyone watching this video has £120,000 sat in their bank accounts. For some people, that is absolutely absurd figures. But if you're actually someone who does have over £120,000 in one bank, you need to stop, because you should be maximizing your FSCS protection from multiple banks. Because let's say, for example, you had £150,000 in one singular bank account and you got scammed. The FSCS protection would only protect you up to £120,000, so £30,000 would basically go missing. And that is literally a yearly salary for some people. So instead, what you can do of keeping it all in one bank is spread it across multiple banks or multiple savings accounts with good FSCS protection. Not only would you be less of a target for scammers, but let's say you had £50,000 spread across 3 different bank accounts and you got scammed, for example, you would be protected for the entirety of your money because it is under different FSCS protected banks. And yes, you may never get scammed, but it is way better to be fully protected than not. And this is where we move on. What can you actually do instead of making all of these mistakes? So instead of parking your money in one singular account, you can follow these 5 steps instead. Number 1, you need to choose a number that you are comfortable having in your main current accounts. This could be 2 months of living expenses, for example. And by the way, this is at the start of the month. Number 2, make sure you have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund if you're full-time employed and a 9 to 12 month emergency fund if you're self-employed. Put this emergency fund in a high yield, easy access savings account. That is anywhere at the minute paying 3 to 4+% on your savings. Number 3, have separate pots for all of your short-term goals within the next 1 to 5 years. This could be a wedding you're saving up for, a car you're saving up for, gifts for your family, a Christmas fund, whatever it is. Park this money also in an easy access savings account. High yield as well. Number 4, any money that you don't need for the next 5+ years, I would look to get that invested into the stock market. Similar to your pension, this is going to grow your wealth. The stock market is on average returned 7.5% adjusted for inflation over the last 100 years. So instead of earning 0%, you could be compounding your money and getting it working for you. And yeah, these are all the steps that can hopefully help you find the number that you're comfortable having in your bank accounts at the start of the month, while also having the majority of your wealth working for you. So if you want more personal finance content just like this, remember to hit that subscribe button and comment any content that you want to see. So I will see you in the next one.